They did it again. Games Workshop sent us another book. This time it's Broken Realms Morathi. By far, our most successful review video of all time has to be the size comparison of the Mega Gargants compared to other Age of Sigmar models. We're gonna do the same thing with books this time. Let's go! You know what? I thought it would be bigger.
Games Workshop has sent us the new Broken Realms book, Morathi. It chronicles Morathi's quest to attain godhood, and ends on a cliffhanger that we are not going to spoil.
No narrative spoilers in this video.
However, we do believe this narrative will continue into the next Broken Realms book. This is a narrative book. When I say that, I mean it. Every battle follows a sequential path, not unlike a Black Library novel. It features a mix of lore and short fiction, and all the battle plans are so narrative, they even have specific requirements for what units you're supposed to take. We just finished up our own narrative campaign, so I think a book like this is cool because it's similar to kind of what we had just done. The battle plans have very specific requirements for what units you're supposed to take, and not everybody's going to be able to play every battle plan as it's described in the book. This type of content can get you inspired for narrative play. The book does mention you can find substitution units for certain battles, but really if you have an absolutely massive collection or lots of friends, you could play out the whole thing as it's described. Morathi leading a foul horde of Scaithborn, High King Volturnus leading the Iron Rock Enclave, 5 Liberators fighting a Charybdis down the street. This is a big change from some of the content that we've seen in Wrath of the Everchosen, whereas those battle plans are easily adaptable to match play. They're just supposed to represent a battle that took place in the narrative. These battle plans are much more specific, even using some of the open play army generating rules from General's Handbook 2020. But there is a section of this book for match play gamers too. We just want to point out right in the beginning, Dramatis Personae. If you've been playing Warhammer a long time, you know that any cast of characters in Warhammer have to be called the Dramatis Personae. This goes back to like Mordheim. Maybe somebody in the comments is going to correct me and it's even older than that, but I'm not, so we're going to go with that. Age of Sigmar always needs more maps, and here we have one of the dominions in Olgu. This one, the Dominion of Shadrack. I want to point out that I'm excited that this is a suspected Eshin layer, as it is labeled. These are the campaign rules, and clearly it's a linked campaign. So when you go from one battle to the next, there is going to be some sort of bonus for winning. In this case, one player is going to be the Morathi player through the campaign, and the other is going to be the enemy player. So that's going to decide which armies you're supposed to use against each other, and then if you score victories, what bonuses you're going to get in between games. Now, to play a campaign like this, it is recommending which armies you're supposed to have. That's difficult for a lot of people unless you can borrow armies, from friends, but you could find substitutions in here, or again, use this as an inspiration for your own campaign to play something similar, maybe even following this narrative. If Morathi is taking an action in one place, does she have an ally that isn't mentioned in the book that you've made up yourself that you're going to be fighting, a smaller battle nearby? There's some new Realm of Battle rules, and these follow the format that was introduced in General's Handbook 2020. You have just one spell, one Realmscape feature, a Realm command, and a Realm artifact. Now these ones are a little bit more exciting than just all of the terrain is deadly or entangling. Something like this, Sweltering Mist at the start of the enemy shooting phase. You can pick up to D3 friendly units to be covered by mist, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target those units until the end of that phase. They're a little more characterful than something you would just find in the match play section. Now, although this is very much primarily a narrative book, there are some Battle Tome updates which can include updates to War Scrolls for the Idoneth Deepkin. There's some new War Scroll Battalions for Stormcast Eternals and new allegiances for Cities of Sigmar, Daughters of Cain. We're just going to go through those and see some of the ones that stand out. So the Daughters of Cain gain a new faction, the Xanthar Kai, which is going to be focused on Scaithborn units. So that's the Melusai and the Kinari. This is supposed to be Morathi's army through much of this campaign. And in addition to getting allegiance abilities here, you also get 3 War Scroll Battalions, and again, these all focus on, you can see, it's going to be using Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers, the Melusai and the Kinari over here. It's all focused on those units or Morathi herself. And what's fun too is in those narrative battle plans, some of them are specifically saying that you take the Viperic Guard and then you're going to be getting these rules. So it's kind of more similar to the army boxes that they release, whether that's Loon Curse or Feast of Bones, where there's a narrative campaign in there that is having you use a specific War Scroll Battalion. So there's 2 new cities for Cities of Sigmar. There's Misthaven and Har Koran, and both of these are based on the old Dark Elves. So whether that's the Darkling Covens or the Scourge Privateers, you've got a War Scroll Battalion and a set of allegiance abilities for both armies that are going to focus on the old Dark Elf models. So if that's something that you have previously in your collection, or you've built up a Cities of Sigmar army that is based around these factions, you're going to get a lot out of trying out these new Cities of Sigmar. Rather than just adding a new Storm host to Stormcast Eternals, they actually add sort of a new way to play them as a Storm Keep. This is interesting because you still choose a Storm host, so you could be Hammers of Sigmar or Anvils of the Helden Hammer, while also being a Storm Keep, which is going to mean that you're going to be able to add Cities of Sigmar units to your army as well, and they'll be able to benefit from being next to Liberators. They're adding more bravery, and they can actually use some of the command abilities from Stormcast Eternals. There's also some new War Scroll Battalions here. Jack was pretty excited about these. Now for the Idoneth Deepkin, this is just an overhaul of some of their War Scrolls and some additional rules for mount traits. So you don't even have to take anything new here. If these were units that you already have, they just have improved War Scrolls. If you were playing Volturnos or an Achelian King, they get a mount trait for their Deep Mare. Now these War Scrolls definitely feel like improvements over the previous ones. There's also some new fun rules here too, where the net launcher on the Alopex has rule Entangled. A unit that's been hit by any attacks made with a net launcher cannot make pile-in moves in the same turn. To me, that is very fluffy. I love the idea of a shark flying in and the rider on top shooting a net at somebody, pinning them down to not be able to make a pile-in. I feel like that's both tactical and it feels very narrative. Slaves to Darkness also get a new Damned Legion, and in addition to being able to make a chariot into your hero, into an idolater lord, you also get Warcry cultists as battle line units, and they get the Marauder charge rule, where if they roll when they roll their charge, you change the lowest dice roll to a 6, so they get to fly across the board too. Since this is an update that will ultimately affect match play, there are of course new match play points in the back of the book.
Shu's turn. Let me tell you what I think is cool about all of the Games Workshop books when I first look at them. I like the pictures. I'm not a very deep thinking person. I'm just going to jump ahead to the parts that I really liked. Check out this Slaneshi hero. I'm gonna have to put a still of it up on the screen for you. These Dark Elf battle barges? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I used to at one time think that the pictures of the miniatures kind of looked like a play set. And I still think that, but they're dope play sets, so I think that's excusable in this case. There are these awesome clad Chaos Warriors going up against Stormcast that look just as awesome. I think this Stormcast has a skull in his helmet. Nothing tells the other Stormcast that you're ready for business like putting an actual skull on your head. There's so many cool at-sea photos. More nautical themed stuff. Games Workshop, please. Please. Boats. Look at these Liberators going down to fight the Charybdis. They don't look scared at all. I tell you, I'd be shitting my boots. So that's it.
I want to add one more thing I think is cool about this book. A lot of players have this question of, why are Daughters of Cain order? Then you usually get some reply on the internet where somebody says that order is not synonymous with good. And that's correct, but I want to break down my interpretation of the 4 Grand Alliances, and I think it helps illustrate why Daughters of Cain fall into Order and why it's exciting that Order is fighting against itself in this book. Order represents 2 things, the first being civilization. Order factions build cities to live in, they have colonized the mortal realms, and Order factions benefit from freedom. Their populations get to choose which gods they worship, and these denizens of the realm are free to pursue their own interests. Death, on the other hand, is a Grand Alliance that, while has civilization, the flesh-eater courts have imaginary fiefdoms that they pay tribute to, or Nagash trying to create a entire realm-spanning necrotopia. Death also has enslavement in that all Death factions are controlled by Nagash, whether they know it or not. Key characters like Archon the Black even question whether any of their motives or actions are their own, or is Nagash pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Grand Alliance Chaos is also enslaved to the Dark Gods of Chaos. Once you make that deal, really, we've only seen one instance when you can come back from that deal, and it requires Sigmar and the Anvil of Apotheosis and a whole lot more. Creatures like the Dragon Ogres struck this deal up in Warhammer number 1, and they're still paying it back in Warhammer number 2. But Grand Alliance Chaos is also interested in uncivilization? I don't know what to call it, but any of their fortresses, any of their strongholds are only temporary because the goal of the Chaos Gods is to destroy the realms, to corrupt them, to not build great cities, but to tear them down. They share this attribute with Grand Alliance Destruction, who for fun loves to smash the castles of Order or the towering necropolises of Death. They do it because they feel like it, and also because they have freedom, which they share with Grand Alliance Order. They are not controlled by Gorka Morka, they destroy things in his honor. Whatever the personal quest of an ogre tyrant or a mega gargant might be, they're free to pursue those ends. So that's why coming back to Broken Realms Morathi and having an Order faction, the Daughters of Cain, who yes have civilization and yes have some level of autonomy, clashing against other Order factions because of their conflicts of interest, that's really exciting to see this in Grand Alliance Order. As far as future Broken Realms books, we might see conflicts between different chaos forces, different destruction forces, and maybe, if the narrative wants to stretch that far, there might be some level of dissent in death. Does Nagash truly not have dominion over all of his servants? Does one of them not kneel? This book is pretty cool, and we're definitely excited for the next Broken Realms book. Check this one out, and definitely use it to inspire your narrative gaming. Or if you just want a better war scroll for the Leviathan, get it for that too. An Order faction